The first integrated list we looked at was a date of hire list that did not reflect any adjustment to the Delta flight attendant seniority for training credit. Because Northwest flight attendants begin accruing seniority on their first day of training, we knew that if we were going to use a length of service integration method, that we needed to correct the training credit disparity, which was between the Delta and the Northwest flight attendants. We did look at giving the Delta flight attendants training credit, which was based on the historic average number of training days that we had at Delta. Using this average is an easy way to give a training credit, and it is also accepted by arbitrators as a fair and equitable way of getting the two groups on even footing.
When we researched the length of Delta training classes, it was determined that the length of training has varied over the years. Prior to 1996, the length of training ranged from 24 to 36 days. By mid-1996, the length of training increased to approximately 40 days and higher. We first looked at an integrated list using an overall average for all Delta flight attendants. Next, we tried integrating the list using two different training date averages. One number for those hired prior to 1996 and a slightly higher number for those hired after 1996 and before January of 2008. The more we studied this approach, the less comfortable we were with this method. When using an average, some people get more days than they actually spent in training, while others do not receive their full credit.
We then decided to go and look for all the actual training records for the Delta flight attendants. At times, this was very difficult. There were so many different methods of recording the training data over time. We did not have records at all for Northeast, Western, or Pan Am. Another issue we faced in crediting those actual training days was in regard to those flight attendants whose seniority had been adjusted for extended leaves, and they were then moved down the seniority list. We also had those flight attendants who came to Delta in a merger who were also placed on the seniority list based on those past seniority integration decisions. The committee was committed to maintaining the order of our pre-merger seniority list. We did not want to use any method that would allow a more junior Delta flight attendant to go above a more senior flight attendant.
The flight attendants who came from Northeast, Western, and Pan Am had previously been slotted into the Delta training classes for placement on the seniority list. These flight attendants have moved with those in their assigned classes and were credited with the same number of training days as the flight attendants in the class in which they are slotted. Delta flight attendants who had been adjusted got their actual number of training days unless it caused them to go ahead of or below another flight attendant on the pre-merger seniority list. Approximately 96% of the Delta flight attendants were given their actual training credit, and everyone received the maximum training credit that could be allocated without reordering our pre-merger seniority list. A pre-merger Delta list was comprised that included a seniority date adjusted with credit for training. Crediting each Delta flight attendant with an adjustment for training puts us on even footing with the Northwest flight attendants and removes the disparity between the two groups.